Good morning, brothers and sisters. Jim Beckwith reporting here at End Times Prophecy News. Trump is on a firing spree. Trump is on a big roll. Trump has never been on a roll this big. Making America great again is at a faster speed than ever. I know we already made America great again, but we're going to do far better than that. President Trump was 100% right in firing Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman because he was duplicitous during impeachment trial and untrustworthy. Got to get rid of some swamp creatures now that I've been vindicated, Trump says. You know, this ain't the first time that the House is going to try and impeach Trump. It's actually going to be more times. They're going to try and do it again. Impeach, impeach, impeach. That's the prophecy by Mark Taylor. It's going to happen. House Intelligence Committee Chair Adam Schiff, Democrat of California, was thanked by some politicians that we could point out that we need to fire Vindman. But anyway, they barred Vindman from naming anyone he talked outside the NSC on pages 105 and 277 to 281, apparently to protect the whistleblower. See Ramella. But on page 14, Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman denies knowing the whistleblower. Schiff is protecting himself and his staff as usual. The scariest aspect of Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman's testimony is his insistence that U.S. foreign policy should be made by unelected bureaucrats like himself. Vindman says he and his colleagues have formulated the best, quote, most informed judgment about Ukraine, and it wasn't appropriate for government officials like the President of the United States and like Trump ambassadors to act counter to it. What arrogance. And they were fired yesterday with Secret Service escorting them out. I guess it wasn't very pretty. Not pretty? Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman and his twin brother were escorted off the White House grounds Friday afternoon, dismissed from NSC jobs by President Trump. The liberals are melting down today because President Trump had the audacity to fire Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman, who had testified in the sham impeachment trial held by Congress. All the fake news media outlets have bold headlines declaring nonsense like "fired for telling the truth" and other fairy tales. Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman did not tell the whole truth during the impeachment proceedings and was quite biased toward the Democrats and against the president. But we're going to be doing over some more news because he also fired Gordon Sondland hours after firing Alexander Vindman. We will be doing a lot more videos now, folks. So stay tuned and start sharing my videos if you can, to try and fight the YouTube, Google blocking and banning and algorithms that are hard pressed on me by about 99.9%. Not only should President Trump have fired Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman, he needs to get rid of a lot more as well. I remember watching Vindman's testimony with his shifty eyes and pompous insistence on being addressed by his full title and rank every time, and didn't trust him from here to the corner. It was obvious he was working with the Democrats while pretending to be an impartial witness to the truth. The truth is Vindman didn't witness a whole lot, and most of his testimony was based on his opinions and not on facts, as you will see. A Democrat pompous activist. Allow me to direct your attention to an article from Real Clear Politics from back on November 18th, 2019. Once you read it, it will come flooding back to you just how duplicitous Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman really was and why his being fired was more than necessary. Here now is that article. Pay attention. From Real Clear Politics. For Tuesday's impeachment show, House Democrats are trotting out their star witness, Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman. He listened in on the July 25th call between President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. It appears that is central to the Dems' case. Did he really listen? You mean he listened to the... I bet he didn't listen, but I don't know. They allege that Trump demanded Zelensky dig up dirt on the Bidens in exchange for military aid. At first glance, Vindman looks like the ideal witness, wearing U.S. Army dress blues with medals. The press portrays him as a hero, reluctantly stepping forward to disclose the president's misconduct. But Vindman will wither under cross-examination the same way he did during his closed-door testimony on October 29th. You haven't heard about that because the media is lying about what is in Vindman's testimony. Vindman's job at the National Security Council is to write policy memos, schedule meetings, and keep minutes of conversations with foreign diplomats. That's why he was on the July 25th call. On page 316, Vindman claims that Trump demanded investigations from Zelensky in return for military aid, but that's Vindman's opinion, not fact. He admitted that the actual words spoken during the call don't support that claim. I think people want to hear you know what they have as already preconceived notions. Vindman's damning admission is found on page 256 of the transcript. Where did Vindman get his preconceived notion? He points to the media stories accusing Trump and Rudy Giuliani of seeking investigations to damage Joe Biden. See pages 176, 277, and 251 and 52. Vindman confessed he never met or communicated with Trump or Giuliani and didn't know what Trump was thinking, according to the transcripts, pages 36 and 177. But on page 252, the Democrats hilariously argue Vindman's on solid ground because the stories quoted Giuliani. So this is not some sort of media spin thing, quote unquote. Are the Democrats suggesting a president can be impeached based on media accounts without real evidence? When Vindman was asked if he had knowledge of a quid pro quo communicated to the Ukrainians on July 25th or any other day, he admitted no, says 317 of the transcript. That makes sense. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Vladimir Prostako said Thursday he was unaware of any link between the investigations and military aid. Zelensky himself denied that Trump put him under any pressure as well. EU Ambassador Gordon Sondland reported to Trump that Zelensky loves your A. That doesn't sound like someone having his arm twisted. After the July 25th call, Vindman rushed to tell an NSC lawyer about his trigger-happy conclusion that Trump had committed a grave wrong. Lucky that Vindman pushes paper and not nuclear buttons. The whistleblower's complaint, filed August 12, tracks Vindman's concern. The whistleblower also relied on media stories and admitted he had no facts showing that Ukrainians were told aid depended on favors for Trump. You know, this Democrat propaganda push to make Trump out to be a nuclear warmonger, which of what is the Democrats, is starting to come to light in the American people. And the American people are starting to realize it's all been a sham. And that is the Democrats that are actually been doing it, and the rhinos. And they keep pushing this idea that there's such a thing in the spiritual world of Christianity that Zionists, there is such a thing as Zionist warmongers. No, there is not. No such thing. To be a Zionist is to say that the Jews have the right to live in their land. I'm so tired of the propaganda and the lies to push and hate Jews. If Biden likes him, you know he's bad. Former Vice President Joe Biden asked the audience to give Colonel Alexander Vindman a standing ovation in the ABC News Democratic debate in New Hampshire yesterday. House Intelligence Committee Chair Adam Schiff, Democrat of California, barred Vindman from naming anyone he talked to outside the NSC on pages 105 and 277 to 81, apparently to protect the whistleblower. But on page 14, Vindman denies knowing the whistleblower. Schiff is protecting himself and his staff. Vindman drafted talking points for Trump's July 25th call with Zelensky and grew concerned when the commander-in-chief strayed from them, according to pages 18, 42, and 93 of his testimony. Is this Lieutenant Colonel for real? Similarly, Vindman was outraged over Trump's recall of Ambassador Marie Yovanovitch, but Trump had solid reasons. Zelensky said he disliked her and mistrusted her. She had sided with his rival during the election, as pages 324 of Vindman's testimony reveals. It's smart to appoint an ambassador who can get along with the country's leader, you think? Vindman's testimony will be of such blockbuster revelations, but none that support impeaching Trump. Matt Gaetz reacts to Trump's ousting impeachment witness Sondland and Vindman. Lieutenant Colonel Vindman fired, Ambassador Sondland recalled from post. A Florida Republican Matt Gaetz weighs in. Let's take a listen.
Breaking right now, President Trump cleaning house tonight after being acquitted this week on both articles of impeachment. The president appears to have decided to let go several of the people involved who worked for the White House, including Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman. The Democrat's star witness was escorted off White House grounds today. His twin brother, who worked at the National Security Council as well, also out of a job tonight. And just moments ago, word that U.S. Ambassador Gordon Sondland revealed that he has been recalled from his post as ambassador to the EU. Remember his role in all of this.
I know that members of this committee frequently frame these complicated issues in the form of a simple question. Was there a quid pro quo? As I testified previously, with regard to the requested White House call and the White House meeting, the answer is yes.
Joining me now is Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz, a member of
the star witnesses of Adam Schiff pencil neck are going down.
House Judiciary Committee.
Oh, I don't think that this is going to be the end of this. I think there's going to be a lot more investigations about Ukraine, and a lot of people that tried to impeach Trump are going to end up being in prison.
Congressman, thank you for being here. Good to have you here tonight.
Thanks for having me.
I mean, that was definitely one of the biggest moments during the House testimony when Gordon Sondland said that, yes, he saw the exchange for a meeting and an investigation as a quid pro quo. Tonight, he is out of a job. Your thoughts?
Well, he saw it that way. Remember, that was largely a presumption. But impeachment investigations undoubtedly create second and third order effects. Of course, we all know a lot more about Hunter Biden than we would have if Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff had not started this investigation. We also know a lot more about Gordon Sondland, and we learned a lot more about Colonel Vindman. For example, Tim Morrison, who was a senior official to Lieutenant Colonel Vindman at the NSC, said that Vindman frequently used poor judgment and that he often couldn't trust the conclusions that he came to. That information was ripened to a higher degree because of the impeachment. And I think if you looked at Gordon Sondland, no one really viewed him as central to the delivery of U.S. policy. I think we'll still be able to get by in the delivery of United States foreign policy absent Gordon Sondland. He was viewed as an intermeddler, and you often heard people talk about how the Gordon problem would emerge as he was outside of the normal work of an EU ambassador. So the president has the authority to remove these folks if he chooses to.
But the reason that they said that, Congressman, was because they were surprised that he was working on Ukraine.
Oh, it is the story woman, Martha McCallum, trying to make a story to support her Democrats. Listen, but
Ukraine policy, because he was the ambassador to the EU. So the people who were assigned to the Ukraine issue wanted to know why Gordon Sondland was involved in it at all. And it turned out, you know, that he was working with Rick Perry and Rudy Giuliani. So that was why they said, isn't that why they referred to the Gordon problem?
Well, right. But I mean, I think that there was continued lack of confidence in his diplomatic work throughout the depositions and hearings, and whether that meant exceeding the scope of his authority or whether it meant just sort of the bungling of assignments. I don't think he came out of the impeachment looking like some great diplomat. So I don't think it's a surprise to see the president choose to make a change there, and also with Lieutenant Colonel Vindman.
I mean, Lieutenant Colonel Vindman's lawyer says that he is saddened to not be able to serve the country anymore. Here's a quick soundbite of his testimony to remind everybody.
It is improper for the President of the United States to demand a foreign government investigate a U.S. citizen and a political opponent. Frankly, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was probably an element of shock that maybe in certain regards, my worst fear of how our Ukraine policy could.
So what you're saying is just because Joe Biden and the Biden crime family are running for president, they're immune to any investigations of any terrible things they've done with Ukraine in the past 10 years. That's what you're saying. They're immune. And it's against the law for the President of the United States to investigate any of their crimes. Cuckoo!
Play out.
You know, a lot of people looked at that. I mean, obviously, people took it different ways, but as that they had some pretty deep policy differences in terms of the way that things should be carried out in Ukraine.
All right, I can't listen to Martha McCallum. She makes me very ill with her, of course, Democrat pushing. Vindman, who made waves as a witness during the Trump impeachment proceedings, was fired by the National Security Council and escorted off the White House grounds, Fox News chief White House correspondent John Roberts reported. All right, and of course, then there was Trump has ousted Gordon Sondland as well after firing Alexander Vindman and his brother. That's not the end of it, folks. Sondland, who testified against the president in the House impeachment hearing from his post as the ambassador to the European Union on Friday, hours after axing Colonel Vindman, another witness against him. Sondland confirmed his firing in a statement to the New York Times Friday evening, of course, to the New York Times. I was advised today that the president intends to recall me effective immediately as the United States ambassador to the European Union. Sondland told the newspaper the ambassador was a key witness in the House Democrats' efforts to pass articles of impeachment against the president, paving the way for his trial in the Senate, which was shut down due to no evidence. So anyway, I just wanted to report all this. Trump is on quite a spree. We're going to be reporting on that. Win. The Dow Jones is higher than ever. It's a blowout with Republicans. It's looking like it doesn't matter how much fraud in the elections there are, and there definitely was major fraud in the Iowa caucus debacle train wreck. So we will leave it there, and we'll see you in the next video. Stay tuned. Thank you for listening.